Hi, and welcome to Matt Holman Talks Mental Health, the podcast where I have the opportunity to sit down and chat with amazing humans about their journeys and their stories with mental health. For this episode, I'm so happy to introduce Max Fenton to the conversation. Welcome, Max.
Hi, thank you for having me. No, I really appreciate it. Amazing humans, no pressure as well.
Well, you know what? You've turned up to this podcast recording. You're an amazing human. So as always, just a brief introduction from me. I just let you know, the audience know how Max and I know each other or got introduced. So through social media, as many of these actually have started to sort of come about. People contacting me, or we get in contact. We share similar passions and excitements and things that we're interested in life, and that's how we connected. We connected a little while ago. We were going to record a few months ago actually, and then Max had a life event going on, which is a positive life event, by the way. I want to make it really clear. He had a little baby daughter, so congratulations, Max. I'm sure that's been a life-changing moment for you as well, but you can talk about that. So welcome, Max. Introduce yourself, let people know a bit about yourself, what you do.
Yeah, of course. No, yeah, thank you for all of that. And I'm Max Fenton. I'm so I've spent the last kind of 10 years within the world of sort of sports hospitality. So I was at Goodwood Racecourse for a short amount of time, which was kind of closer to me, where I'm kind of from in West Sussex. And I spent kind of the last 9 years at Ascot Racecourse, kind of going through the ranks a bit there, and really just kind of gaining extra experience kind of in sports and events, and finding out a lot about myself, moving to a new area. Been very much a village kind of bloke for a long time, and just kind of being in being used to sort of one area and one town where kind of everybody knows everybody, and kind of making that move. So there was quite a lot of adjustment there initially, but recently, obviously, as you've alluded to, I've got my stepson who's 6, which is Ted, and me and my partner Lauren have got 17 week. You do everything in weeks these days, don't you?
Yeah.
Year old baby daughter Ivy, which I've taken a little bit of not a career break as such, but decided it was time to sort of move on from Ascot. So over the last sort of 6-7 weeks, I've been at home kind of with those guys whilst looking for a new job. Kind of like you said before, just making sure that I keep someone fed and try not to drop them has been pretty much the order of the day so far. But aside from that, like you said, where we met kind of on socials, on sort of LinkedIn, for me, it was a big community, especially during lockdown, something that kind of really gave me sort of a reason to, sort of keep going each day, was kind of connecting with people on there. I know it was the same for a lot of people. And the community I found on there is fantastic, and they've continued to support me, and I've continued to try and sort of let that grow. And I know that's kind of where we kind of met, as it were. Yep. It's been a long time coming, but I'm really pleased to be a part of the show. Like you say, I think was it 112 episodes or something
so far?
So I mean, which is incredible. So congratulations on that front, and really happy to take part. So.
Oh, amazing. I love having anybody that's interested in the conversations and amazing humans, and your introduction there is just sort of showcases some of the things that have been going on for you. But we're going to go into the big area of sort of the discussion. The purpose of this podcast is to talk about the journeys with mental health. So I'm going to throw that over to you, Max. So your journey with mental health, you interpret it as you will. Give us a story, tell us a bit more about yourself and what you've been through.
It's been quite an interesting journey over the last few years, I suppose. Kind of thinking about it, it was probably sort of six or 7 years ago, which doesn't actually seem that long. And I know mental health is very prevalent, and we all kind of talk about it now, and businesses are kind of all over it from a corporate responsibility standpoint, and as far as ticking a box and making sure that there's help available. But for me, is that help kind of sustainable? Is it sort of day to day? Is it something that's actually kind of bred into the culture? I still think there's some gaps. But for me, probably about sort of 7 years ago, I started to experience kind of anxiety, couldn't sleep very well. For me, it used to sort of manifest itself as a bit of a sort of a chest pain, and I couldn't really sort of put a finger. Obviously, I went when it first kind of happened, so I sort of had I'm not really sure what it was, maybe a bit of a panic attack or an episode, whatever, however you want to kind of call it. But I went to sort of A&E in the hospital, and they tested, and they said, look, you are obviously a little bit sort of worked up. You gave me an ECG, so your heart's beating a little bit faster, so we'll take you to A&E, and we'll kind of sort of look at it from there. Did a load of tests, couldn't find anything that was medically kind of actually body-wise that was that was kind of wrong, and kind of sort of sent me on my way a little bit. So you kind of just coped with it and kind of got a bit used to it. But I remember being on treadmill, for example, and I'd get the sort of chest, I'd have to actively kind of stop what I was doing. So it was actually kind of diminishing my quality of life, and being able to kind of perform how I wanted to. And obviously being in kind of I've always been in a sales background, so always quite a competitive, for want of a better word, macho kind of blokey world of, kind of, we don't really talk about things, we drink Red Bull all day and smoke 20 cigarettes, it wasn't quite like that, kind of in the hospitality world, but in the recruitment world beforehand, it was, very much like that. So I've always kind of been used to, those high pressure environments. And, I kind of had, had a good family, had good friends. I wasn't kind of, depressed or anything kind of within myself. So, I think it made it even more difficult was the fact that I didn't really have a trigger as such. It wasn't sort of something that happened and I was like, okay, well, that's because of that. And, so for me, I probably let that kind of go on a little bit longer than I should have done to sort of really appreciate kind of what it actually was. And, I think the biggest thing for me and kind of why I want to talk about it, why I was interested in coming on your podcast was that I didn't really have, even though it's not really that long ago and everyone's talking about it now, at that point, there wasn't really somebody that I could look at who was sort of my demographic in kind of my industry that I could kind of say, oh, okay, well, it's not just me sort of thing. Obviously there were in a, kind of a more general scope, but for me to kind of look at someone and think, okay, well, they're my age, they're kind of in, say, there wasn't really a lot of people that I felt comfortable sort of reaching out to. So if I can be that person for one person that's kind of feeling the same now, then why wouldn't I do that is kind of my sort of philosophy. So that's kind of where my sort of passion around it sort of comes. I kind of, like I say, kind of sort of battled through it for a couple of years, and you kind of get on with it. And some days it would be worse than others, and some days you'd be like, okay, have none of it at all. So you're like, oh, maybe it's not actually, that serious kind of thing. But, it was sort of ticking along. So I did sort of go to, I went through kind of a course of sort of CBT, through Talking Therapies, which was, kind of like a Berkshire NHS sort of free program, where you used to speak to someone every sort of month. And there was a lot of kind of sort of online support throughout that. But actually, speaking to somebody that was, completely detached from your life, didn't necessarily have an opinion or know the people you were kind of talking about or the situations you've been in, I found it really useful. And yeah, since then I've pretty much been on sort of daily medication, which is sertraline, which is a very low dose now. But I think since then, I've obviously seen a massive improvement. But it's also, it makes you realize there's certain things that probably are triggers that maybe you didn't notice beforehand, like obviously having a big night out and kind of, obviously eating a load of rubbish and the next day, and what, obviously you're not gonna feel great. So, putting a limit on kind of those sort of occasions. Obviously we have which is obviously a hot topic at the moment, your Christmas parties and all of those kind of things and whatever. There's obviously events that, you can't you can't avoid, but, you know, sort of limiting those down and realizing what, you know, does make you feel, might not necessarily be the trigger to what is happening, but it can certainly make it a lot worse.
Yeah.
So I think it's just being a lot more aware kind of that. And yeah, now I'm at a point of where, you know, you kind of manage it well, you know, kind of where your triggers are, you've got your sort of coping mechanisms, whether that's kind of breathing or, you know, just any of those sort of little techniques that you can sort of take on. And now, yeah, like I say, at a stage where, you know, I think you can manage it reasonably well, and yeah, you know, going kind of not admitting, but, you know, kind of actually being brave enough to actually go and do something about it, is, you know, has really sort of helped me. And again, that's kind of my inspiration to say, if there's somebody that might be sitting there watching this or seeing something online, or, you know, whatever it might be, if they kind of think, oh, okay, actually I have been feeling like this for a while, I'm gonna, you know, I'm actually going to talk to someone about it. And that's kind of, again, you know, that's kind of what, why I'm so open about it, I suppose.
Wow, amazing, brilliant stuff. Thanks, Max, for sharing that. And I think it's just an incredible sort of story in terms of the journey that you've been on with that, you know, and of course, anxiety is being managed, you know, that's the reality, isn't it? So you're still on a medication, and there's been a big sort of campaigning around sort of people showing their medication recently, you know, to prove, not to prove anything, but just to show to people, look, it's okay to be on medication. I think it's not about promoting the use of medication for everybody. It's just saying, sometimes medication is useful. It helps to support you, and it keeps that sort of going. Do you know, can you sense, so just talking about your anxiety, if that's okay, just a little bit, can you sense when it's coming? Can you sort of feel it now? Is it something, or does it just sort of arrive and then you're in that moment? How does it work for you?
Yeah, so on that medication thing, just briefly, I didn't, you know, I never really appreciated kind of the amount of people that, you know, that do kind of receive help in that way. And for me, I'm very much you know, like my fiance will say to me, you know, like, oh, we'll take a paracetamol if you've got a headache. And I'm like, no, you know, it's just a placebo. It doesn't really sort of, you know, do anything. But I've been very much in that camp for a lot of my life. And, you know, it was very much not a last straw in the respect that I would do anything sort of drastic. I didn't feel like suicidal, or I wanted to end my life, you know, or anything like that. But it was kind of very much the final, right, okay, I need to do this to sort this out so I can have a better quality of life. So for me, it was very much a last. And then, you know, like talking to people, kind of when I've been a bit more open, they're like, oh yeah, I used to be on that actually, or like, oh yeah, I have, you know, I'm on sort of whatever it is. And you're actually like, okay, like, I'm not necessarily saying medication is the golden bullet, but it's, you know, like you say, it's kind of you know, I compare it to a couple of things, you know, just sort of saying, like, you know, if you broke your leg or whatever, you wouldn't just kind of be like, oh, I'm going to get on with it, sort of thing.
Some people try to and then realize they can't. So.
And then, but, you know, if you break your mind, or you know, have a bit of a wobble or whatever like that, you know, you shouldn't just ignore that either. But for me, with like, sorry, just going back to your actual question. For me, the anxiety side of things is more like, I described it as kind of, when I first had it, it's just sort of like hay fever, you know, it just sort of comes on. So I might wake up one day and just feel like a bit kind of, you know, have that sort of feeling in my chest still, you know, occasionally, which again, you know, like you keep on sort of checking, and, you know, been to the back to the doctors and sort of regularly just sort of keep a little bit of an eye on it, because they tend to panic about that stuff, quite rightly.
Of course.
But it's, you know, it can just be as easy as, you know, as easy as kind of waking up one day and being like, oh, well, you know, I haven't been, you know, I've been eating really well. I've been, you know, been to the gym, all of those kind of things, you know, and like sometimes you just feel like that. But, you know, you feel like it much less if you're, you know, I know it's so boring and everybody's, you know, but, you know, you clean eating, you're kind of, you know, drinking your water, getting plenty of sleep, that feeling of endorphins that you get after a workout, for instance, like so many times, I don't know what it is. I used to quite like going to the gym and kind of being in that mindset. And recently I've kind of gone, but I've sort of dragged myself along just because I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just because it's getting colder or something, but it's, you know, that, but I do it because I know how I'm going to feel afterwards. And I'm sure you can relate to, you know, just seeing all your paraphernalia behind you, which is very impressive. But I'm sure, like you say, after all of those kind of things, that's kind of the best kind of medication, isn't it? That you can't really buy. So
so true. And actually, before we recorded this, I went for a run with my assistant. We went for a 5K run. So it was, so I think for me, the whole thing about self-care is the critical point of all of this. You need medication in some ways sometimes, but you also need to take care of yourself. You can't just expect one pill to fix everything, because it won't. And I think that's one of the risks that we face a lot in society at the moment, isn't it? Is sort of people heavily leaning on, I need the medication.
Yeah.
And this isn't a podcast about medication, by the way. This is just as part of that conversation. I feel like we're sort of going, but it's a relevant topic to the right now, because people are being more open about it. And but it's that having other things that you do that make you feel better. And self-care is so critical, isn't it?
Yeah, but like you say, I think in this day and age, I think this generation, I feel quite fortunate, because I feel like I sit in a generation where I remember, playing outside and playing Kirby, where you used to throw the ball against the curb on the other side of the road, and sort of being called in by your mum and ringing people on their house phones and all of those kind of things. But I've also had the crossover into your Instagrams, your whatever. So I've kind of sat in the middle of the two, and I'm very glad that I had that first bit and ground it, kind of remembering what it was like to go out and play and being so excited to go and kind of do that. And I think now, in our generation, it's just so much about a quick fix. If you look at anything, it's like, 30-day abs, or, whatever it might be. Everyone wants the benefits without actually kind of being prepared to sacrifice and put it in. And I think that's, I think that's kind of quite embedded in society these days. And, I think that's where, for me, the bit of the reset that happened with COVID, was great. We're out walking every day. We're kind of, obviously not an ideal situation, but as far as the kind of basics of, what our ancestors did before any of this, sort of go for a walk, eat the right things, try and sort of take care of yourself, that kind of, all of those kind of things, I think were, I almost felt like the world kind of saying, take a little look at yourself, we'll give you a bit of time. Obviously, not a great situation for a lot of people. However, like you say, sort of for those that were lucky enough to not be sort of directly affected by it, just one of those, probably once in a lifetime sort of events that, hopefully won't continue.
We hope so, yeah.
But famous last words. But I think it's just one of those times where, whether it's career or at home or diet, nutrition or exercise, whatever it might be, people have found sort of new things and actually thought, oh, okay, I can give that a go. When you've actually stopped being so busy that you don't find the time to fit anything else in.
I love it. You said my least favorite word, busy. It's the excuse, isn't it? And I've said this so many times, but we use busy as an excuse to doing the things we enjoy, or not doing the things we enjoy. I can't go to the gym, I can't meet up with my friends, I can't do this because I'm too busy. I've got too many, of these other things going on, and we value our time in totally the wrong way often. Busy should be a barrier to doing it.
No, and there's classic things for me. I think I'm very sort of black and white in the fact that how I talk to you now is probably how I would be at work, for instance. Like there's not a big, there's not a Jekyll and Hyde kind of, this is Max at work, this is Max at home. Like I like to be very sort of honest and sort of transparent up front. And for me, the kind of battle of like, who's the busiest? Who's got, oh, can we do this meeting? Oh no, I can't possibly do, like all of that kind of thing just for me is, so off-putting and, just kind of, like you say, the wrong kind of way of going about it. If you really wanted to do something, you could fit it in. So I'd rather someone just say, actually, do you know what? I'm not interested. I'd be like, okay, fine. You don't, because if you say you're busy, I'm just going to try and contact you again and try and find out when you're not busy. Like
exactly.
For the podcast, like for this, for instance, or, for Be a Good Sport podcast that I kind of, that I've been sort of looking at. If somebody sort of says, oh no, I'm too busy, but sort of maybe later, but they're generally not interested. I'd much rather know.
Yeah, just be honest, right?
Yeah, I'd much rather know. And that, it's like, okay, well, fine, I don't waste my time.
No.
You're not getting hassled by somebody who wants you on their show.
Although you did cancel the previous recording because you were having the baby, so I sort of gave you I gave you the excuse for that one. So you
no, it's not, maybe not the.
No,
I mean that's probably
it's
one
reasonable.
Probably one of a couple of things that I think you can let people get away with. But even then, I probably would have been, a bit. I would have tried to do it from like the hospital.
No, don't worry, it was fine. You needed to concentrate on other things. It was absolutely fine. It was all good. Honestly, I don't. But that's the beauty of what I do. I think you're right. It's like people get me like this everywhere. I don't need to put on a face. I don't need to pretend. I don't need to put on a corporate suit. If somebody wants me to wear a shirt and tie, it's like. That's not me anymore. That was my previous life in a different, generation of my world. And, it's almost like Doctor Who-esque, isn't it? It's sort of like I've been reborn and regenerated into this new sort of honest and authentic person. I think that's all we can ask for, right? It's genuine authenticity.
And I think that's, always, one of the key things. And obviously I've had spoken to a lot of people about a lot of different roles and opportunities over the last few weeks. And, they're kind of questions around, what would you kind of bring to a role, or how would you kind of go about sort of attracting, prospects, customers, or something like that. And the biggest thing for me is always just that, connecting with them as kind of a person and being completely honest. The example that I kind of give is that if there was I don't know, I'll use an example of cars or something, if there's like if someone came in and there's a 200 grand, I don't know anything about cars, so God knows why I've chosen this example, but I'm just trying to make it simple. But
I love it. Yeah.
So if you had like a Lamborghini that was 200 grand or something, and a customer came in but had a family of 4 and a dog, but wanted the Lamborghini, but there was like a nice estate car that was like, half the price of that or whatever. I mean, again, ridiculous pricing going on.
Yeah.
But, rather than me sell that Lamborghini, I'd much rather manage that client's expectations, sell them the lower end product. And in 3 years' time, when he's coming to get a new car, he'll come back to me. Because the family trusts me, because I've recommended the right product, I've managed their expectations, and for me that's very much how I like to operate within relationships. Like even at the point of where if I say, look, I don't think we've got anything that's right for you, in a year's time or 6 months time or whatever, their situation might have changed, and they'll be like, do you know what, I actually quite like that bloke. He wasn't trying to rip me off. And it's all kind of sort of goes back to, like you said, just that kind of how your own character and your own sort of personal brand kind of comes across. As much as you have to do a bit of fluffing and stuff every now and again, I'm sure. And like obviously I don't wake up with gel in my hair and combed and all of those kind of things.
This is normal.
And I mean, immaculate. But like obviously there's there is a line on certain stuff. But for me, just being as genuine as possible. Brilliant. And as you get, as you sort of clock up the years a little bit, not that still like to think sort of young. It makes you realise that you kind of you're not here for forever. You're not here for a long time. So don't be good now. Yeah, don't be a whatever. I'm not going to swear.
No, don't worry. So let's go on.
Yeah, go on.
No, I was going to say, I want to move the conversation into your Be a Good Sport stuff. I want you to give us a little bit more of an insight into what that's all about as well, because I'm conscious we've got probably about another 6 or 7 minutes to go.
Yeah, no worries. Sorry. Yeah, no. Rambling on about cars.
Oh, no, love it. I want the Lamborghini. Even though I've got 2 kids and the dog and the wife, but I want the Lamborghini. I just need a better price.
I can't sell it to you.
Just need a better price.
I'm sorry. Or you get a trailer on the back. Hashtag kind of Be a Good Sport network kind of came about in the depths of that kind of winter lockdown. For me, where I was put onto furlough quite late. So a lot of kind of people that I'd known in the industry and all those things, had kind of had that sort of summer of furlough where it was like glorious sunshine and everyone was kind of off work and, you know, out and about and seemingly enjoying themselves, which I'm not bitter about. But, you know, I kind of had November time, I went on to furlough and I was kind of thinking, obviously I can't call or email people because of, you know, obviously I'm sort of furloughed, so I can't keep in touch. But and I was like, how can I, because I've suffered with anxiety beforehand. Obviously, the lockdowns and COVID, you know, people were experiencing that for the first time. Right. So for me, it was very important to think, okay, well, look, I've been through this already. People are experiencing it for the first time. So how can I help them, but also from my own sort of personal brand and development? How can I stay on people's radars, you know, without kind of breaking any of the rules, basically? So I thought, okay, well, I'll pick 5 people from the sports and events industry and just write a little bit of a profile about them and just did an article kind of once a week with kind of new people from the sports and events world and just talked about them a little bit, talked about their venue, found a post of the week on LinkedIn, which was like you know, if someone was doing something great for charity, you know, I saw people were doing, you know, kind of like the marathons, but in their gardens kind of thing, or like, you know, or however it might be, the kind of ingenious ways that people were raising money for charity. So we'd highlight that as a post of the week. And then from there, you know, a few people got in touch with me, mainly Mark Lee, who works at the Principality Stadium, and Jessica Southworth, who is Director of Sales at Hotel Football in Manchester, actually, right next to Old Trafford. So for me, it was, a bit of a no-brainer to get her on side, which I'm sure she'll love me saying. But it's, you know, they kind of came to me and said, look, why don't you kind of, why don't you kind of look at, you know, live events? Why don't we try and get sort of people together that you've kind of sort of highlighted in the articles, but kind of bring it together for a bit of a networking event, sort of insights, have some speakers, all of those kind of things. So we did the first one of those in Manchester, where we were in the weird tier system. So we could only have, you know, a certain amount of people, but yeah, we kind of sold it out, and it was really great to see people, you know, like yourself, for instance, you know, like, you know, people that you've been talking to online for so long, and meet them in person and kind of talk to them about, you know, we had a speaker, Tara Hancock, who works for charity called Sports Against Suicide. So she kind of came on and told her story of, you know, how sports have kind of helped her. And, you know, at the same time, we're kind of having, you know, like a more of a sort of relaxed networking event, you know, with a bit of a party attached to it. So it was kind of like a networky insights party, really. So we're looking at sort of having another one of those in Cardiff on the 24th of March next year. And then, alongside that, you know, we kind of sort of looked at doing a podcast where we interview people from the kind of sports and events world, and just really, the industry probably got hardest hit than you know, kind of a lot of because we literally couldn't do anything. So whereas obviously some companies, you know, benefited, hospitality is really one that has suffered and is continuing to suffer. You know, like the news over the last couple of days, the big Christmas parties, all of those kind of things that have probably been booked for months, and you know, companies have been clinging on to, thinking, oh, okay, Christmas is around the corner. You know, Christmas is around the corner. We've got, you know, some big bookings coming in, and gradually, you know, they start to drop out, and even to the point of a, you know, an independently run restaurant where they've got a table of 2 that, you know, they've got booked in, and they don't tell them they're not coming. You know, all of those kind of things that you know, on the surface you would never really kind of massively think about. But you know, that's someone who's, you know, you have 4 tables of 2 disappeared. That's a member of staff that you've had on that night to cover those tables, and you're covering that cost. And the person who's let you down has 0 responsibility. So you know, it's all of those kind of things, and just trying to bring together the hospitality, and just give a bit of a behind the scenes view of the hospitality industry, and hopefully have a bit of a laugh at the same time. So but it's all about just like you said, like we've said, honesty, transparency, opportunities. If a venue's looking for for a new starter in a role, we'll try and sort of connect them. If there's a supplier that's looking to get into a particular venue, for instance, we'll make the introductions. We're just basically there to kind of help anyone that's interested in kind of helping others as well. So
amazing. Well, I love it. I love the concept. I think it's a great idea, and it is an industry in a sector that's been absolutely devastated by COVID and continues to be impacted by all the different changes and announcements. And who knows what the current crisis is going to evolve into, but let's just keep our fingers crossed it's positive.
Yeah.
Difficult,
at the same time, you'll never meet a more determined, optimistic, and driven bunch of people that work in the hospitality field. They are really a different breed. There
you go.
Really kind of committed to their craft, and
brilliant.
If there is an industry that will kind of come out of it stronger, I'm sure it'll be that. So.
Well, there's demand for it, isn't there? There's so much demand for activities and events and things to go. It's just the restrictions and the challenges of that are thrown upon us in other ways. But Max, we're right at the end of this, and it's almost, where is this half an hour gone? It always feels like it's a bit. I feel like I'm a time bandit when I have to tell people, right, we've done a half an hour. I'm going to throw it back to you in a second, just for any final thoughts or words. Anybody that's listening, but just from me, just to say a huge thank you for for everything you're doing, for continuing to fight the good cause, talk about your own experiences, to share and help with others, and for coming on the podcast as well. I genuinely do. I love it. I love the fact that we've just had a nice conversation about so many different elements, but it's a normalized conversation. So thank you. Over to you. Any final thoughts?
Huge thank you from my side. It's been you've been really welcoming and love the format. And from my side, if anyone is struggling, if anyone kind of wants somebody to reach out to in my world, feel free to connect with me. LinkedIn's probably one of the best places to do it. The sort of hashtag Be a Good Sport network. We're on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. A lot of stuff that I don't understand as much as I probably should. But
don't show your age.
But it's like I say, the main thing is that there are people like yourself, people like me that are interested in having that conversation, and no one needs to kind of feel like they're alone. So
brilliant, wise words, and absolutely. And just to echo those thoughts, so again, nobody needs to feel alone. It is so important. If you are struggling, if you do need extra help, if you are listening still, and you think, oh, who can I speak to, Max or I, you can reach out to either of us. We're absolutely fine with that. We will respond as well, of course. But there are organisations out there that help. Samaritans, you can call for free on 116123, or shout 85258 if you fancy texting. We prefer to text. But that's it. We're done. Max, I just want to send you and your family and baby Ivy all the very best of luck. Enjoy. I hope the sleepless nights are past and you're able to maybe get in there. It will come. But listen, take care of yourself, look after all the family, and good luck with everything you're doing. I wish you all the best in your new role as well when it's official and you put it out there.
Thank you very much, Matt. No, appreciate it.
You're more than welcome. Take care now. Bye-bye.